Husband hates my family and won't spend Christmas with them. My 32F and my husband 33M have been together for 4 years and married about a year and a half. Essentially, since meeting my family, he has hated my family, mom, dad, brother, and sister. Because of this, we get into major fights over this, but most of them are related to deciding where to celebrate the holidays, specifically Christmas each year. The hate started mostly with my sister and just grew from there. My sister and my husband are both very strong personalities. Making a very long story short, I have worked hard to somewhat mend the relationship between the two of them where they are now civil and can have a conversation with each other without it getting heated. My sister is planning on staying with us next month for about a week before moving into a new place, which is amazing and a major milestone for them. After years of my husband hating her, I think he was able to see that he was wrong on some of his opinions of her, and my sister has toned down her more argumentative personality around him. This has led to a much better relationship between them. The problem now lies with my parents. My parents hated how my husband treated my sister before we got married, and although they kept their big opinions about this from me and my husband, it's evident that this has been a major roadblock between them and my husband. Before we got married, a big fight happened between my husband and sister, which had my mom stepping in and standing up for my sister. From there, things between my mom and husband have been very bad ever since. Neither has brought it up and just go about being civil, but my husband holds serious resentment about it, and I know my mother has been mad about it since, but reserves her feelings for herself. My father, on the other hand, has mostly had a decent relationship with my husband up until our wedding. My husband has been pissed at him since our wedding because he didn't say anything nice about him in his speech. My father spent his time in the father of the bride's speech talking about how proud he was of me and then gave some tips to both of us for marriage. I personally loved the speech. It meant a lot to me that my father had wonderful things to say about me when he's typically a man of few words. My husband and his whole family thought the speech was disrespectful because nothing nice was said about my husband other than congratulating him on planning a good wedding. Note that nothing was said negatively about my husband in the speech. Also note that this happened almost a year and a half ago, but my husband is still mad about it. The problem now is whenever there is any mention of my family, he gets extremely angry and starts making stuff up in his head about them. He gets himself so worked up, and that usually leads to a very big fight. Last year, leading up to Christmas, he refused to spend either Thanksgiving or Christmas with them. My parents live 2 states away, and my husband's family lives overseas. At this point, my husband didn't have his green card yet, so he couldn't leave the country. Because of this, it would make sense for us to spend time with my family on those 2 holidays, but he refused to go. After lots of arguments, it ended with me visiting them for Thanksgiving alone and for us doing Christmas at our house without any family. I told him that I'd accept that if we would go to Christmas at their house the following year, and he accepted, hoping things would be better with the family by this point. Now it's getting to that time of year again where this discussion of holiday travel is coming up. My parents have invited us to come to their house multiple times since we've gotten married, and we haven't gone at all. Meanwhile, we have not 1 but 2 trips planned to go visit his family before the end of the year. My husband says he'll go once they come and visit us, which they haven't yet. My parents were set to come visit us next weekend, but my grandmother, my father's mother, is very ill and probably only has about a month or 2 left with us. Because of this, my father called and asked if we can come visit my grandmother that weekend instead. She lives in a different state from both me and my parents. I told my father of course we would come. When I told my husband this morning, he said, "Typical of them. There's always some sort of excuse." I told him this is a very reasonable reason for them to not come and told them that they got hospice care for her. Husband said, "Of course they did. Your parents are rich. Doesn't mean she's going to die right away. Doesn't matter. If they don't come and visit here before Thanksgiving, then I'm going home for the holidays." I left the room crying at this point. He called later to apologize for his comments about my grandmother's illness, but said he still refused to visit my family at Christmas. I was so angry at this point, so I told him that I don't care if my parents come visit or not, which I honestly don't. I prefer visiting them, and that I'm going to their place for Christmas this year no matter what. He said, Well, I'm going to book my flights back home then. I never give ultimatums, but I was so upset and told him if he didn't come with me for Christmas, then our marriage could be over after that, and he quickly said he agreed with that statement and that he'd cancel his green card now, and we'd work out separation when he gets home. He is most likely bluffing on this, but whether he means it or not, I'm so scared because he is putting his pride over the sake of our marriage. I would love for my husband and family to get along. At this point, though, I just want him to stop saying incredibly terrible things about them and for everyone to just get along for my sake. I love my family and my husband, but it's unfair for me that I'm in the middle of this. He has always said I don't stand up for him when it comes to my family, but even though my family might not be his cup of tea, I think they have been overall very welcoming of him. I also don't think my family has done really anything wrong when they have. I've called them out. He, on the other hand, gets offended by everything they do or say and thinks I don't stand up for him. I told him I always have his back, but I can't stand up to anything when I don't think anything wrong is happening. He just gets so wrapped up in his hatred that he thinks he can do no wrong and they are always out to get him. Newsflash, they're not. I don't know what to do with any of this, and any advice on how to deal with this would be appreciated. Note that husband refuses to go to therapy and considers it a waste of money, so that is not an option.